Okay, Tyler. Wow, the Bill season ends so different but so familiar. Denver and turnovers this time, but another high-scoring loss. And this time, of course, Sean McDermott pays the price. This is what we ask everybody since it happened on Monday. Were you shocked that McDermott was out?
I was not shocked at all. I think that anything short of a trip to the Super Bowl, I think he would have been out, frankly.
Okay. So, I mean, you sensed it. Leading up to, was it the having to settle for a wild card? Was it something more internal? Bulldog was sensing him making little comments about the roster and different things that might have been a bad sign about how he felt.
You know what? I thought it was interesting at the presser, Tyler. You were there, right?
Yes, it was.
When somebody asked Bean, I think, about a power play or something, and Pegula interjected, like, I'm not a power play. I'm not a fan of the power play, which is, I'm waiting for it to turn into a hockey thing, but the Sabres are good now, so maybe it won't. But, like, if I'd sensed that, you'd be out. Like, I don't play that way, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the spirit of the comment Pegula made. I wondered whether he sensed McDermott making a power play with the comments about Darius Slay and Jamarcus Ingram and Jacoby Myers and, like, whatever. There was stuff through the season that I thought was the first public evidence of those two guys, McDermott and Bean, sort of having been at a fork in the road, and I don't know how far that fork would have gone back, but I felt like they were diverging from one another all season.
So, absolutely. I think there is something to that relationship. We'll get to it. It's a combination of a few different things. So, obviously, Terry Pegula referenced the scene inside that locker room, the tears, the dejection. I think he really just wanted to help people kind of see what he saw. And then he did get around to mentioning 13 seconds by name and missed field goals and all of these repeated playoff failures, defensive failures, 33.2 points per game the last 6 of 8 playoff losses, right? That's really considering when they've been a playoff contender. I mean, go right down the stats. I mean, I'm sure you have, but you're talking about 52 non-kneel-down drives. They've allowed 25 touchdowns, 13 field goals, forced only 12 punts, 1 missed field goal in there. They've created 3 turnovers, and they've allowed 199 points. That's good for 3.83 per drive, which, by the way, is more than the 2007 Patriots, Brady, Moss, Welker, all those guys scored per drive. He's a defensive-minded head coach. That is supposed to be his expertise. So that's why you start with that game. 3rd and 11. He's sending the dogs, guys. 3rd and 11. 7 at the line of scrimmage. 3 back off. Bo Nix has time. I think that play stood out. What happened 4 snaps later? Tre'Davious White goes down, and Dane Jackson comes in, ice cold off the sideline, and Sean McDermott did not learn his lesson from earlier in the game when Cam Lewis went down, and Darnell Savage comes in, and Sean Payton targets that replacement player. In that case, give Dane Jackson a little bit of help. Throw him a bone. Don't leave him one-on-one out there.
Instead he blitzed there.
We can parse through specific plays. We absolutely can look at the offense, all of that. But when you lump this Denver game, Bo Nix, 29th in passer rating during the regular season, mind you. He's down 2 receivers. He doesn't have a running game. This isn't Joe Montana. You put that with all of the other ones, the on-field product is enough. And then you consider the dejection, the emotion, the fact that this is the proverbial playoff wall. And I'll tell you what, fellas, I talked to some people in that building, and this really stung me. I wasn't bringing it up myself. What came up time and time again? 13 seconds. I mean, that really is the game, the moment when we look back at the McDermott era that broke this team. It has. I mean, it's hovered over the franchise like a dark cloud, from overruling the special teams coordinator who wanted to squib. They go touchback, Kodak moments before each play, cornerbacks lined up in another zip code, overtime they get ran over. There's zero accountability the next day behind the scenes, telling the assistant coaches, you guys have to get out of here. You guys have to figure out what went wrong. By the way, at the podium, he did use the word execution, which is usually code for the players screwed up. win. It's safe to say the head coach screwed up in this situation.
That's true.
It was Legion of Boom losing to the Patriots at the 1-yard line. Right? There are games that stick with teams, and they never get past. They never got past that one. It's if anything, if there is criticism to be levied, I think that it took too long.
Well, it's interesting to hear people inside the building reference that, because I thought that was just our lives out here. That like 13 seconds comes up almost every show. It seems like in our lives here, but I wouldn't have guessed that it would be something that would come up like that prominently from people inside the building. So the way forward here is what? Like I know, I read your piece, and we're here reacting in real time to the news conference. And it had its rough moments. The whole firing process, Tyler, I think the Bills brought a lot of negative heat on themselves for the way the whole thing went down. However much animosity there may have been about everything you just said over the years, I think the Bills vastly underestimated how emotional the fan base would be about McDermott. I think they might have thought a lot of people, more people than in reality, are walking around ready to just fire at will on him because of that. And I think they botched some stuff along the way, and the news conference was hardly smooth as well. So, we get through that, though, and now it's on to, find a coach. But it's been a rough week for them.
I'm not going to disagree with you, Bulldog. There's... You would think maybe that video is ready to roll out a little sooner, thanking Sean McDermott, but maybe it did kind of happen fast. Maybe you cut him a little slack there, but there's a way to do a statement. There's a way to do a tribute. Absolutely, there are ways to do something like this. What I'll say, though, Sean McDermott, I've been thinking about this because you're right. It's wild. It's gotten to the point where the blowback has gotten extreme, right? To put it mildly, I think we feel it. When petitions are circulating and local news stations are bringing on sports psychologists to discuss how players will cope with the grief of losing Sean McDermott. I mean, he didn't die, right? Nor is he a combination of Vince Lombardi and Mother Teresa. He was a very good coach who ended the drought and made the playoffs a bunch of years and won a hell of a lot of games. And this is what you see. There's only been a few coaches in NFL history that won their first Super Bowl with a team in year 9 or beyond. Bill Cowher, Tom Landry, and Hank Stram. And Hank Stram won an AFL title in there. So this isn't uncommon. This happens. But to your point, I think locals have been hearing Sean McDermott in their ears for a decade, right? On your show, at press conferences, he's been a part of lives. In the car, at home, you hear Sean McDermott's voice so much, you kind of get used to it. You don't hear Terry Pagula's voice, you don't hear Brandon Beane's voice as much, but we heard it on WGR off season. That plays into this as well, with kind of where the goodwill is swaying back and forth. But I think that you hear it, and he was not so subtle with dropping, some drive-by shots at the GM along the way. And I think that people remembered that. I got to look it up. I talked to somebody in the building, or I should say, somebody that kind of is familiar with the relationship, and they kind of likened it between McDermott and Beam, kind of likened it almost to a marriage headed toward divorce. We're short of a championship. It's just not going to work out. And quote, whether it be the husband or the wife, they start going on a campaign. They start going around friends. Oh, my husband, he did this wrong, that wrong. It's like they're campaigning.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like McDermott was doing that, and it was subtle. It wasn't like he was hitting people over the head with it. So that kind of, I think that settled into the consciousness of people, subconscious. We remembered Brandon Beane going off on with Jeremy and Joe in the morning about the receivers, and then you saw what happened at the receiver position through the year. So that's in the back of minds. And then the climax of it all is the press conference after the Denver game. Everybody here in Western New York is pissed. Everybody feels like the Bills got screwed again, and I mean they did. I think objectively, most people would say that was a catch. And he mirrored the emotion of everybody. I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it. I think people could relate to that. They could feel it, and they attach themselves to that energy. So then at that point, that's who a lot of people want around. And kind of like the logic of it all gets thrown to the wayside. So I don't know if that answers your question. I feel like that's the case, but you guys would have a better sense talking to people every day on the show.
Well, I just know that and by the way, I guess I'm in what you would consider to be the minority because I think it was an interception. I think if that ball shakes free at the same time and the Denver player doesn't come out with it, it's an incompletion. So by that logic, I think it's a pick. But anyway, when I first... I was not thinking really all year, Tyler, as I noted all these examples of McDermott, mentioning things about the roster and his dissatisfaction subtly with certain things. I always assumed wrongly, quite apparently now, that Pegula would side with the coach, not Bean, right? So the game ends, McDermott, we carry live. Mike and I are hosting post game, and he's fired up about that play. And I didn't know until I got up the next morning that he had called Jay Skursky in the press box and then went longer and harder about the whole thing. And that's the first moment when I thought, maybe he knows he's in trouble here.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to lay it out like what I was thinking, like that, I never thought he was in trouble this year. I thought he did a great job this year with the roster.
You know what I think is important to remember too is the bigger picture, not losing the plot. Let's start at the start. 2017. Hell, this is back when my pod co-host Jim Monis is on staff, and that go to 2016. October of 2016 is really when Terry Pegula fell in love with Patrick Mahomes. Nobody really considered this guy a first-round prospect then. He had a feeling that this dude is going to be a stud. He saw Brett Favre. He saw his franchise quarterback. And so you get through the season. Everybody close to me showing, hey, look at this Mahomes clip, look at that clip. And I think Doug Whaley and Jim Monis, they liked him, they didn't love him. They saw the same thing everybody else did, some recklessness. And then Sean McDermott is hired. They're going through the process. And to McDermott's credit, I don't blame him. You don't want to rush into a quarterback yet. He wanted to win with Tyrod. Year one, Terry Pegula doesn't want to step on his toes and go full Jerry Jones, so they trade down. Whaley Monis get fired. Brandon Beane comes in 10 days later, and this is the important point, and Terry brought it up at the press conference. Brandon Beane was the one who worked up that draft board, had the conviction on Josh Allen. He's never going to forget that. He saw it. Like, think about what's going through Terry's mind if they land Josh Rosen or anybody else after he missed on Mahomes. I mean, this is the best possible consolation prize.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of been on his mind throughout. He's talking to Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane year to year. He probably has a good sense for who likes which players and their football knowledge. That's the big question, right? Like, who's behind each draft pick. But I think that over time, Terry came to realize the organization should run through Josh Allen, the quarterback. And 2020, 2021, 2022, he's a superstar, and it's clear he's this unicorn, and you've got to kind of build through him. He realized it. Brandon Beane realized it. I've been told by many people that Sean McDermott never really realized it until it was too late, until 2024, when you really started seeing positive comments from the coach on the quarterback at every turn and several feature stories, one-on-ones.
Yeah.
I went back and looked at the sit-down we did in his office. And it was great. I mean, it's incredible he even let me in there after what we wrote, obviously. And he was so open and honest and talked for an hour. But he made a point to bring up ending the drought 4 different times, like noting what he inherited. It's all true. But, I mean, here we are in 2024, 2025 talking about it. And at one point he said, like, look, it's more than just Josh. It's bigger than just Josh. And he kind of clarified himself later. He caught himself. But it was a little slip-up that kind of mirrors what I've been hearing from people in the building that, look, McDermott and Allen, they were never truly aligned. They're very different personalities. He was way closer to Brian Dable, and then Dable left. And I just think that it wasn't toxic, right? It wasn't going to blow up or anything, but it wasn't that great, right? It wasn't what it should be. And it's a good thing they moved on while there's still time to take advantage of Josh Allen.
Well, you mentioned it quite a few moments ago now, but I just want to say I finally found something that I have in common with Terry Pegula, because I also wanted the Bills to draft Patrick Mahomes in 2017 at 10. I fell in love with him as that draft process went on. So at least I have that.
I'm glad to hear you say what you did about sort of the timeline of their relationship, because as recently as 2024, I thought it was icy. It sounded like to me that it was icy, but then, and there was a moment in the middle of the season when I specified that, and of course I just, like, what do I know, right? Like, I'm just looking to start a fight or something, and then they're doing snow angels together a month later or something. Like, just I kind of think too that it maybe improved last year. Hank Stram, Tom Landry, and who?
Bill Cowher, year 14.
Cowher. 9+ years in a job before winning one, and then they did.
Their first one, yep.
Well,
You're too young to have met Stram, right?
I am a little too young, but there is the bucket of coaches who didn't get it done. You got Wayne Fonts over there, and Marty Schottenheimer, Marvin Lewis, Bart Starr, Don Coryell. That's and before I forget though, too, Mike, the Josh Allen Sean McDermott relationship. To their credit, right? And Dan Pompei had the excellent story in The Athletic. Josh going over to his house for dinner, and we see the snow angels on live TV. I think he kind of worked at it. It was just a little too late. But if I go back to it was a staff meeting, and a source for my series back in December 2023 pointed this out, that it just blew my mind that Sean looked to him and said, "Tell Josh to stop worrying about that effing house. We've got a season coming up. When the season starts, that needs to be Brittany's issue." That's obviously his former girlfriend, and not effing his. And coaches just looked at each other like stunned, like, what the? So there's some smoke there. And I just think that Terry Pegula, Brandon Beane, they got Josh Allen in those meetings for a reason. People are stunned. Like, well, how can you let a player sit in there? Well, that relationship matters. And it took until, year 8 of 9 for Sean and Josh to kind of get to a really good place. And Josh is the ultimate employee of the month company man, right? Son of a farmer, no stars. You don't hear a bad word about him. He's never going to speak out on any of this stuff. But it matters. You got to have that lined up, and I think that's why he's sitting there. He shouldn't have the say, but he should have a say.
Right. I want to tee you up before we wrap up here to talk about the quality of the job opening, because I loved the little nugget that I saw in your piece about being at the presser on Wednesday and knowing what the reaction was, and your phone blowing up from people just slamming the Bills for how badly that went, and then the phone call you got right after that as you were driving home.
Yeah, exactly. I think all our phones were blowing up like, what in the hell is going on in Buffalo? This is a disaster. So I'm dead serious. I get in my truck, go back, drive home, and I get a call. I'm not going to say who it's from to protect them, but it's somebody that's looking to become a head coach. I hadn't talked to him in ages. I was shocked to see this name on my phone. So I answer it, assuming this person wants to talk about what the entire world is talking about, and he had no clue there was a press conference at all. I think he was just excited about this Buffalo Bills job opening up and was just looking for a 716 in his phone to just talk about the Bills. And he went on and on and on for an hour about how he would love to deliver a Super Bowl to this city with this quarterback. And at one point, I'm like, did you catch the press conference? And when I explained what happened, he just kind of shrugged. He didn't really care. I don't think anybody in the NFL really is going to care. It's the Keon Coleman thing, it made headlines. Ideally, your owner is interrupting the GM and creating this huge PR nightmare. That's not ideal, but I don't know, guys. Keon Coleman isn't going to catch strays if he's catching the ball on the field and setting his alarm and getting to meetings. It's the framework of this all is his own doing. And I think it's a big boy league, you know what? It's not ideal, and they have to mend the relationship. But this should be the wake-up call of a lifetime for him. I mean, words shouldn't offend him. He already knew his career was on the line in year 3. So here it is, right? Let's see what you got, Keon Coleman.
If I take one guess, and I'm right, will you tell me? Doug Worthington. Doug Worthington. Is that it? No? Okay. Could have been. Local ties. Thank you, Tyler. Really good insight today. I mean, you're always great for us, but especially interesting, I would say, this time. And look forward to the next one.
Hey, always love talking, fellas. Thanks for having me. And we've got stories on this all at GoLongTD.com.
Yes.
People want to subscribe and check it out.
GoLongTD.com. Thanks again.